What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Back for our second week and our second episode. So I've got 3 new topics to talk through with you this week. I'm going to be talking about your time and how your calendar reveals your priorities. I'm going to talk about memory and motivation, how that is not a system. And if you're relying on memory in particular, it is going to kill your efficiency. And I'm going to talk about the discomfort of boundaries and why pushing back feels so wrong, even though it isn't. So it's Saturday evening. I've had clients here today. I've had a fab day. And so you are coming in. I'm recording this on the back of the last bit of energy that I have for the day. But I really wanted to get this recorded so that I've got time to get this out over the weekend and ready for Monday's email to be able to share it with everybody. But I've had a great day. I've had people here today working on their goals, working on their challenges. And it's been a fantastic day. I've really enjoyed doing it. And it's really nice that the people that came today have got lots out of it too. And it's really nice just to see people have that space to be able to talk through what's really important to them, what they're working on, and be able to sit in that space and have that space to be able to talk it through and quite often come up with their own solutions as they're talking it through. But also the rest of the group here being supportive, asking them questions, helping them to look at things, explore things from a different perspective, and then offer up some solutions for them to be able to take away and consider, or some other questions for them to take away and reflect on. We use an action learning set framework to be able to do this, which means when they're talking about those challenges, they get to speak uninterrupted. Not even interrupted by me and my challenging and disruptive coaching questions. Even I sit quietly while they're talking things through. And then that gives them the opportunity to really explore it themselves. And quite often they'll say, oh, I feel like I'm rambling. But actually, this is the first time they've had time and space to be able to talk about it without the interruptions. It's such a fantastic process. And it's been great today to see people talk it through and come up with their own solutions, as well as then have the solutions that are being offered up by the rest of the groups. It's been a great day. But I've got 3 topics to talk through with you that have come up this week. I'm going to get straight into it. So the first one, talking about calendar audits. So this week, in particular with the Blueprint program group, we've been talking about how you can scale systems, how you can create a structure that allows it to be simplified and allows it to be scalable. So when we're looking at the way that we work and how we work, we want to make sure that we've got a system in place that protects our priorities. And we want to make sure that we have a routine that works for us. So it was also one of the things that we talked about today. How do you create a routine that has something in place that protects the things that are most important to you? Because life is busy. We don't have any extra hours. And so we want to make sure that a structure and a routine protects the things that are most important. And I often say to people when we're talking about priorities, especially our professional priorities, I often say to people, if I was to look at your calendar, would that reflect what you are now telling me is important? So we'll have a conversation around what is most important to them. And I will ask them that question. If I was to look at your calendar, would that reflect what we've just talked about and what you've just told me is a priority for you? Does that show in your calendar? Is that booked in? Is it committed to? Is it in there? Or is your working week full of meetings? Is your working week full of things that are not your priority, they're somebody else's priority? Or is it just not appearing in there at all? And so a lot of people worry that the more strict the structure or the more they put in their calendar, the less flexibility they have. My argument is that actually the flexibility is within the structure. The structure is your framework that holds everything together. The flexibility and the variety sits in within that. But we want to make sure that our priorities are committed to within that calendar. So we want to make sure that the time is protected for the things that matter most. Now, when I say the things that matter most in your workplace, that might be your strategic tasks, or for those of you who are business owners, it might be your income generating activities. From a personal level, it might be your time with family, your time with friends, your hard stop time at the end of the day to make sure there's a clear difference between your working time and your home time. It might be, if health is important to you, it might be your gym sessions, your gym blocks, or going for a walk at lunchtime. Your calendar needs to reflect your priorities. So your time needs to be committed to what you are saying is important, and you need to commit that time and reflect it into your calendar. The calendar doesn't lie. So if you're saying, let's say, for example, your family's a priority, but you're working until 9 o'clock, your schedule's telling the real story. So we want to make sure that we are not in meetings for 4 or 5 hours every day, because that doesn't give us time to do the work that's most important. So if you know you've got reports that are due, or you have activities that are duplicated or repeated, put them in your calendar. Put that time in there. Mark it off as important time, strategic work that needs to be done, and protect it. So one of the things that we often talk about when we're talking about auditing our time, we use the AAA time framework. So we want to make sure that we've got ascend activities. So those are our strategic tasks, the things that move things forward. We need to have our anchor tasks, the things that we need to do repetitively. They're the supportive tasks. And we need to make sure that we are avoiding the draining tasks, the things that don't go anywhere, the things that are not our priorities. They waste time, they drain our energy. We want to make sure that those are not in there. And if we're saying that work-life balance is something that's really important to us, we want to make sure that there's a hard stop in terms of when we're working and when we're not. So we know what space we are in. So question for you to consider is thinking about your calendar for last week. Does it reflect what is most important? And if not, what can you change within your calendar in the week ahead that's going to help to create the picture that you are talking about in terms of what you're saying is important? So the second topic is also around systems and structure and routines, and that's around our memory and our motivation. So this was something that we talked about in the group call this week. And one of the people on the group call very kindly shared that actually they're trying to remember what needs to be done. It takes a lot of energy in itself, like trying to remember all of the questions to ask, in a certain meeting, or remembering what needs to be done, is tough. It takes a lot of brain power to be able to do that. One of the examples I gave in the workshop was that I run regular events, and the first couple of times I did them, I didn't have a spreadsheet or anything that was capturing what I was doing. And so I had to keep making the same decisions. But because the events are 6 or 12 months apart, I can't remember the decisions that I made last time. So I was going back through emails, trying to remember the different decisions that were made to run the event. So it would be so much easier if I just created a spreadsheet and used that each and every time. And if I do something a little bit different, I can record that too. But relying on our memory is not a system. It's definitely not a reliable system, and it makes us inefficient. In the same way, relying on motivation is also a challenge. So our motivation is a feeling, whereas discipline is the action. So if we're waiting for a feeling before we take action, we are not going to be efficient, because we find it very hard, especially when we're tired or stressed or we've got lots on. It's very hard to evoke that feeling and to feel motivated to do something. So what we have to do is create the system where there's a plan and there's a routine that captures that and enables that to happen. And then we need to be disciplined in following the plan and making it happen, not waiting for the feeling like we feel like we're ready to do something or we feel in the mood to do one of the tasks on our list. We do what we said we were going to do when we created the plan. And that's the discipline. So checklists and templates can be a really quick and easy way to increase your efficiency and be more effective. It's a very simple way to change behaviors that will have the desired result without doing too much. And actually, it then streamlines the amount of time and energy and effort the next time you do the same task. So have a think about the tasks that you do on a regular basis or the activities that you do on a regular basis, and think about where you might be able to put in checklists or time or templates. So we definitely don't want to be relying on motivation. It's nice to feel motivated, but let's face it, we definitely aren't going to feel motivated all the time. And we're going to have tasks on our list that we don't want to do. You know, this is why Eat the Frog has been such a helpful concept for a lot of people, because it gets those tasks done and off the list and out of the way, rather than taking up the headspace of knowing that it needs to be done. So we want to create systems that work even when we're not at our best. So on those weeks where we're not feeling great and we're a little bit low on energy, or we've not slept too well, we don't want to rely on being able to feel that we are ready to do something. We want to just look at the calendar, look at what's scheduled in, look at what we need to show up to, and show up and get it done. And then it doesn't matter how we feel. We are able to be much more consistent, and we're able to show up and still do the things that we do the things that we said we were going to do, so that we keep that momentum going. So some of the things that clients have talked about this week is meal planning, ordering the shopping every week, and then just, making those decisions around what they're going to be eating, what's going to be cooked, to help keep things nice and easy. One of the clients talked about visiting different teams on different sites and having some templates to be able to check off what needs to be looked at, the questions that need to be asked. We talked about systems, being able to automate filing emails or sifting out the emails where we've been blind copied or copied in, so that we're only looking at those priority emails that are addressed to us first. These are all simple things that we can do that can have a big impact on us being able to show up and get things done. It helps us to be more efficient. It helps us to be more effective, because if our productivity either depends on us remembering everything or is dependent on us staying motivated, it's not a system. It's probably more like hope. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting in trying to remember everything. It's exhausting in trying to feel a certain way before we get stuff done. So motivation and memory, they are not a system. They're definitely not a reliable system. So look at what you can put in place that will help you to be able to do that. And the third and final point, boundaries. Now, this is a big topic, but I think what I want to touch on for this week is the conversation that we've had as a group this week. And this isn't about necessarily knowing what boundaries to set. It's the follow through and the conversation, and actually some commonality within the group was that a lot of them had a good idea of what boundaries they needed to set. We were able to work through to help them to get clearer on those boundaries and what it is that they're protecting and what it is that they are asking to be respected. But actually, the big part of the conversation that we talked through is holding that line. So once you've drawn that line, once you've decided what you want that line to be, where you want that line to go, actually holding that line and the discomfort that comes with that. We talked about how we communicate that and how we then challenge that when people push back, because it happens, especially if we have allowed certain behavior for a long period of time and then we suddenly start doing things differently. You can understand that actually for those individuals, they're expecting a different response. And so for you to expect them to roll with it without explanation, that's where the difficulty comes in. So we want to make sure that when we are deciding those boundaries, we're communicating the why and why this is important. But also when there is a pushback, that we try and see it from their perspective as well, because it might be that that's their boundary and that they're pushing back because it's crossing a boundary for them. The communication is really important here, and not just the clarity in the communication of verbalizing what our boundaries are and why it's important, but also listening to the other person as to how they feel in response to that and what's most important to them. This is not an I'm okay and you're not. As much as possible, we want to make sure I'm okay and you're okay. And sometimes there's some negotiation with that as well. But setting boundaries will feel uncomfortable, especially when they're new. Holding the line of those boundaries, that's definitely going to feel uncomfortable. Now, that's not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's a sign that you're doing something different. It means that you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. So that means it's unfamiliar. And that's where the discomfort comes in. The discomfort is because it's new, it's different, it's unfamiliar. And potentially there's an internal dialogue where you're questioning yourself because it's new and because it's different and it's not something that you normally do. Like someone like you doesn't normally do this. So we attach the identity to being the people pleaser. We attach the identity to being the person who's approachable and has all of the answers and is always happy to help. So we have to let a lot of things go when we do this. So it's not just about setting the boundary, communicating the boundary, and then holding the boundary. It's also stepping into the unknown, stepping into the discomfort, letting go of what's no longer useful to us, and stepping into this identity of I am someone who says, I'm in the middle of something right now. Can I call you back? Or I'm somebody who doesn't put down what they're doing to accommodate somebody else without asking questions, without checking the urgency, without checking it against my priorities. So think about the identity change that needs to come with it to enable that boundary change to happen. So, different topics to last week. There will be some repetition over the weeks, I'm sure, but I'm going to keep picking out my light bulbs from my client work every week and talk through what's been coming up, how we've discussed it, what we've talked about, and hopefully that's helpful for you too. That's it for this week. That's another 3 light bulbs, and hopefully there is something in place there for you to consider and put in action for the week ahead. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Light Bulb.